Joy Groblebe, are you ready to fearlessly question today?
I think so.
All right, fantastic. Um, Joy, I have to ask, I don't really know you all that well. I mean, we've talked a little bit here, getting to know you before the show, but I feel like no matter what you're doing, I feel like you've always just come from doing something completely nice for a random stranger. Is that true?
Maybe sometimes. I don't know if it would always be true, but I try.
I feel like you just got done helping somebody like cross the street with their groceries, even though you probably didn't leave your
That's
house.
that's nice.
Well, let's get things started. Let's just kind of ease into things here a little bit. And what I wanted to do was have you tell everyone your story as it relates to fearlessly questioning the dirty work. I know you like to call me out for using it in that, we'll say, derogatory term, but tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Well, so I finished high school and got a full ride scholarship to college, and I went for 3 semesters and decided that I didn't want to go to college anymore. I really just wanted to go to work. So I dropped out of school, much to the dismay of my entire family, and I got a job as a receptionist at an engineering company. And when I did that, I found out that I was pretty good at assisting other people with their work. So a receptionist job turned into an admin, turned into an executive assistant, and that eventually, I don't know, 6, 7 years later, I was the executive assistant to the CEO of a big radio group in St. Louis. And that job really taught me that the person who's behind the scenes, the person who's assisting other people, really, it's a pretty powerful position. That job was probably one of the best jobs I ever had because I got to do so many cool things. You know, really, half of her job I got to do. I got to sit on the board in her place of all kinds of nonprofits and different organizations. I got to go to a lot of great black tie events and different things. And when the sales managers had a meeting, I was in every meeting. I knew everything that was happening. So what that taught me was that you can't. You always say the secretary is the one that really runs the world, and that's kind of the truth in a lot of ways. So when my son just turned 12 a couple of days ago, and when I had him, he was my first child, I decided I didn't want to be in an office anymore. I wanted to stay home. So the idea was to do event planning or something behind the scenes that I could do from home. So my first client is a gentleman named Ken Davis, who's still a client today, and I was basically a VA 12 years ago before it was really a thing. But he's a comedian and a speaker, and my first job was to get his posters printed and get them sent to all the bookstores that would carry tickets for his shows and print tickets and do these crazy spreadsheets with people wrote their names on them and what ticket numbers they took. And things have changed drastically in 12 years. But during doing that behind the scenes work for him turned into the business that we have today. It's called the Frontline Group, and my business partner is Brian Shear, and we do full service artist management for mainly authors and speakers, which really means we let our clients focus on what only they can do, and we handle the rest of their business for them. So if they're a speaker and a writer, you focus on speaking and writing, and we'll handle the rest of everything for you. And that's kind of how we got to this spot anyway.
And I'm glad you kind of brought in that whole little bit about college. I want to get to that in just one second, but I'm going to start off with kind of the most fearless question we've got today. We'll just hit it right off the top. Mine's well like a Band-Aid. And I think my question to you is why is it so hard for people to quit getting so dirty with the work? Why are people so attached to it? What is this like kind of affection they have towards it? Like, what is it? Can you explain it to me?
I totally get that, and I don't know if I'm the best person to ask because I always say to Brian, I'll be like, Brian, let me stay in the weeds. Like, I like the weeds. You do the 30,000-foot view and let me stay and like do all the work and get everything done. And I think it's because it's safe. I think it's because we know what to do. It's somewhat task oriented. And I'm better about it now than I used to be, but I've grown a number of businesses to about the $500,000 to $1 million mark, and like that's about the point where you can't control everything yourself anymore. So what happens there is you have to be more about strategy and big level thinking and hire these teams and manage them, and that's where I always get kind of freaked out. So I think people hold on to it just because it's comfortable and familiar, and when you get out of the dirty work, that means you have to hire someone else to do it. then you have to manage them and delegate to them and rely on them, and you can't do it all yourself. At least that's how I always think I can do it myself, you know, and I'll know it gets done at least the way I want it to get done. Not sure if that's the right way, but
What's the best indicator that it's time for that to happen? Do you have any just a like aha moment, or is there like a sign like that you're gonna get smacked in the face with something? It feels like it's the most ambiguous thing you could ever try and figure out.
well, you know, I still struggle with this. I'm glad Brian's not in the room because he would be like, oh my gosh, she sucks at this. But a couple months ago, my colleague Lauren came out to my house for 3 days, and she's really not my assistant. She just works with me on a lot of projects. And we started this, I was just so overwhelmed with everything we had going on, and Lauren said, you know, let's just start and like get everything out of your head and your notebooks and get it all into Basecamp, so we at least have things in a project management software. So we started talking, and we did really broad categories like particular clients, particular conferences, I mean very, very high level category. And I just started talking, and as I talked, she typed. And I am not kidding you, I talked for over an hour without ever looking at a note, without ever opening up a notebook or looking at anything. And the problem was all of that stuff was in my head. Everything was in my head, and no one on my team knew it was all in my head. And what happens there is then I'm responsible for it all. But guess what? I am not the detail-oriented, perfectly check off every task on time person that Lauren is. So that day we spent 2 days together and took thing to a very tiny level, and by the time we did that, Lauren had all these great projects and lists and things in Basecamp, and now I can just go in there and check off the things I need to do. But bringing her into the picture got everything out of my head, got it to a place where my team could help with things, and more importantly, my team knew what I was doing. So what's happened since then is that instead of having 100 emails in my inbox at any one given time, I have 20 or less, because my projects are in Basecamp, my to-dos are somewhere else, and I'm not trying to do everything myself. Having her help me with that, delegating that to her, I could give her tasks to do. It made me see that though I think I have it all together, and I know that it's all up here, you get to a point where you can't grow unless you do that. So that was such a liberating experience for me to be able to have someone help me with that. I'm not perfect with it. She's probably going to have to come out once a quarter and do that whole thing again, because I'm sure I'll go back to my old ways. But the relief that I felt from doing it afterwards made me realize that's exactly where I need to go. I've got to involve my team. I've got to get it out of my head.
To be honest, I think you just liberated me a little bit telling that story, because that sounds fantastic. Because I think what you said there too, the most important thing is that one, you actually had another human being to talk to, which we sometimes forget that they exist, other human beings, that is, and that actually having somebody do that. So I don't know, one, I might come steal that. Lauren, you said her name was. I might come steal her, because that sounds awesome to have somebody just be able to talk to them and have them just kind of get your thoughts like in an organized fashion.
Well, no, it's funny because after the fact, she knows I won't put stuff into Basecamp. So she said to me, when you have a task, just forward me the email and tell me to put it in Basecamp. And I thought, that's crazy. It takes me as long to do it as to tell you to do it. And she said, but you won't do it. And she said, secondly, she goes, if you tell me, then I know what you're working on, and it helps me to team with you better. And it's just been amazing.
I mean, first off, I don't want to like say that you're lying to me that you're not very organized and detail-oriented, but those look like some pretty seriously detailed circles behind you there. I don't know what they say, but I mean, it looks like.
You know why? You're gonna laugh, because I flew to Nashville this morning and I'm sitting in Lauren's office. I'm not even kidding you. Those are her details. This is her world back there, not mine.
Oh, well, that makes a little bit of sense. So did she? I mean, she didn't hear me threaten to steal her, because that would be awkward. But anyways, I want to hop back to the whole school thing, because I think that's kind of where this whole starts, and there's like a very interesting psychology there, and it's very impressive to me. One, a lot of different ways and some different topics that we want to eventually touch on the show. But is that kind of your first attempt at maybe not doing your own dirty work of listen, I don't have time for the school thing. I just know what I want to do and I want to get into it?
Yeah, I think you could look at it that way. I mean, I was pretty entrepreneurial as a kid. I always had one little make and sell this, make and sell that, something going on. And I grew up with very entrepreneurial parents who always owned their own business. So my parents were extremely motivational. There was never a question of like, an idea was a bad idea. It was always, what do you want to do? Okay, well, how are you going to go make that happen? They never said, that's crazy, don't try that. So I don't think everybody got to grow up that way, which I think is unfortunate. And so I was pretty lucky there. But the whole college thing for me, it just felt like, I was in my first year and I was taking a math class and a Colorado history class and an English class, and I'm like, I just did this for 4 years. I don't want to be a teacher or a doctor or an architect or something where you need a particular degree and training to do the job. I don't know what I want to do, but until I figure that out, I'm not going to sit here for 4 years to get a business degree and go be an analyst somewhere. When I graduated in 1994, and everybody wanted to work for Anderson Consulting after college. That was like the big, you've really reached things, and that just wasn't for me. So it was an easy decision for me, but it did tick off a lot of people, for sure.
Well, and I mean, I'm with you on that because I don't know if you followed James Altucher at all, but he had a podcast back in May, and it said, like, why college is a scam. And I mean, this is probably not as true as it is today, but I mean, just the fact that, like you said, the time and the lack of, I guess, value it can actually prove to improving your career. I think I'm ready to not send my kids to college. I've just stopped planning and things like that. So yeah, they'll figure it out, and I think they'll be better off for it. But
I have 4 kids, and they range in age from 3 to 12 right now. So we're a little bit away from college, but
that's impressive. First of all, that's a lot of kids and a lot of different ages. That's impressive.
Lots of kids. My kids are going to need to know what they wanted to do. My sister, on the other hand, she's a surgeon, and she's married to an attorney who's a law professor. And so they are like, every kid goes to college. Well, for their jobs, they had to go to college. It's very important to them, and education is so close to their heart. I really want my kids to be educated, but like, I want them to know what they want to do. My son right now says he wants to be a diesel mechanic when he grows up, or a professional baseball, soccer, or football player. So if those don't work out, he's going for a mechanic. I have no problem with him going to school to do what he wants to do. So I think my encouragement to them would be, make sure you know what you want to do first. And if that means taking off a year to just go to work somewhere, where this hit me the most was when I went to work in an office, and 4 years after, I had been there for 4 years, so all of the kids my age were graduating and looking for jobs. And at that point, I was a person who would sit in on interviews and help with that process. And what I was amazed at is that while they were the same age as me and they had a degree, they had no clue about like how to behave around adults or office politics and what that means, and how do you interview and answer questions. And so I felt like the experience I had gotten in those 4 years, while I didn't have the certificate, and that could have hurt me in some jobs, I had a lot of experience in how business and the world works that they were 4 years behind on.
Well, I think it really boils down to the rigid kind of view that we have of what we define as education. We look at education as like this thing like where we have to go to this room where there's like tables and chairs, and that's when education happens. It's just like that's the furthest, at least for me, where I learned the least amount in those settings. But I have to ask a question, and you might hate me for it, but I'm just going to ask it anyways. Did you get lucky dropping out of school, or I mean, do you think it was something that can work for more people?
I don't think I got lucky. I do think like I said, I think I've always been pretty entrepreneurial. Risk taking is easy for me. I mean, my husband and I are both very spontaneous. Like, we met and decided to get married right away, and we moved because we're just spontaneous. You want to move to Arizona? We moved to Arizona. But I make a lot of decisions, and I say, what's the absolute worst thing that can happen here? And the truth is, 90% of the time, it's not that bad. Like, you can recover from it. You might be in pain for a while, but it's not that bad. So I've always kind of had that mentality. If you're somebody who taking risks and not planning everything out perfectly, if it's easy for you to do that or hard for you, that will change. So I might have been lucky in that my personality is that way. But I mean, I didn't get any fancy job. And the truth is, when I was talking about that job at the radio station, we moved to St. Louis after we got married, and I went to work at a temp agency, and maybe I did get lucky because that was the job I was temping for after they fired somebody, and they hired me. They kept me. So I don't really think it's luck. I think it's more of how your brain is wired. And if you're okay to take some risks and you're okay to go out there and make it happen for yourself, maybe you don't need that structure. But if you're somebody who you're like, I'm going to be an accountant, well, then you need to go to college and you need to get your CPA and you need to do that. The internet has changed things so much in the last 15 years that there's all kinds of jobs that didn't even exist when I went to college. And so, all of us that are spending time developing online materials and courses, conferences, books, workbooks, ebooks, there's a lot of opportunity that you can do from the comfort of your own home and jobs that, didn't even exist 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, and Griswold makes a very good point here. He says, yeah, where does one get a degree in doing other people's dirty work? So, I mean, I think that's the thing. It's like you don't even really, you almost have to create the job that you want in some aspects. Like that, they don't teach you how to do the job. Like even when you get out of school, you have to go and learn, like for however long it takes you to do whatever job you've gotten hired to do.
Yeah, and think about how many kids come out of college and they get a job as an administrative assistant because they don't have any experience. Like, that's just the way it works. My cousin just graduated with an engineering degree, and I have no doubt he'll get a great job. That hasn't happened yet since May, and he's looking for, like, the job when the truth is you might have to go do a lower-level job. I just wanted to get the experience first, and then hopefully he's so right. You can't get a degree in that. The only way you get experience in doing it is to actually do it.
Well, we're a little over time here. I want to get in your question, your fearless question to the audience. So we're about halfway through here, and I want you to ask a question to the audience, something that you've always kind of wanted to know the answer to, but you weren't really sure what somebody was kind of going to say. Now's your opportunity. Let's go and ask it.
Okay, so here's my question. If you could choose one thing about your job that to never have to do again, what would it be and why? What's the one thing you do in work that you wish you could never, ever do again?
See, that's why we have you on the show. That's a fantastic question. I should have you write the questions from now on because that's a really good one. No, because I think that's definitely the mindset that people have to be getting in kind of for this whole conversation. It's like, listen, I call them the life-sucking task. What sucks the life out of you? At the end of it, I mean, because it might not be that hard, it might not be that time-consuming, but when you get done with it, you just feel awful, and then it makes you less productive for everything else that you do the rest of the day. And like, what are those things, So we'll see if we get some answers that trickle in here. But for you, let's ask that question back to you real quick. I don't do this often, but I just want to say, like, what is one thing that you would put on that list?
Expense reports. I loathe doing expense reports. And you know what I do? I don't do my expense report for the month. And then I don't do it the next month, and then Diane, who does my books, calls me and she's like, you have to do it. And it's 3 months later, and then I don't even remember what the expenses were, and I don't have receipts, and I loathe expense reports. That's one. I'm sure I have more, but...
So you do still do the expense reports, though, yourself?
I have to, because, yeah, do I do it myself? I do. We're a pretty small company. There's maybe 4 of us total, and so we're little. We all do our own thing. And I'll be honest, like, I don't have... an assistant that does like my calendar and travel and expense reports. That's dirty work I have not given away, and I really don't want to give away. And in fact, I have had a few friends that have really challenged me on that, and I just don't want to.
Why don't you want to?
Why not?
Yeah.
Because my life, my work, and my personal life are so intertwined. I have 4 little kids that have a million things going on, and I don't want to have to tell an assistant all my family stuff, and I just want to be able, I'm very scheduled, probably 12 hours, 14 hours a day with everything, and so I want to have control of that. I don't want to have to go through an assistant. But I have another kind of assistant. I have more of a personal assistant. She helps me with kids. She helps me with laundry. She helps me so that my life keeps running while I'm working, so that when I get off work, that stuff's already done, and that's far more valuable. That dirty work I can give away in a second. That's far more valuable to me than like the administrative kind of stuff.
You're spoiling. That was my next question that I wanted to get to. I can't remember I can't remember where I heard you say it, but you'd mentioned that you had like somebody that does your laundry and like a housekeeper of sorts. Yeah. That was the way that you put it was very, very interesting, because you had said when you get to a point, we always think like people that are wealthy or whatever have people that tend to their things around their house, but when you get to the point like you should reward yourself with that or whatever, and how important that was. Talk about kind of that kind of mindset of I can do my own laundry, but I mean, again, this is the idea of getting rid of some of this dirty work. Kind of talk about that a little bit more.
Well, for me, we're a pretty busy family. I know everybody's busy. I think Travis and I, my husband, we kind of take it overboard. We like to travel. We go a lot. I travel for work. And what I realized was that, first of all, ask anyone who knows me, I suck at laundry. Like, I am not a good housekeeper. I could decorate and throw parties all day long, but I'm
I mean, I'm not the most domesticated person in the world, but how do you suck at laundry? Like, what do you screw up? I
oh,
don't
you
get.
just number one, you don't do it, or number two,
Oh,
you wash
okay.
it and then you don't dry it. I'm famous for
Uh,
that. Or you
Maybe
dry
I
it
guess
and
I'm
then you
not that
don't
good at
fold
laundry.
it.
You're going over all these things. I'm self-reflecting. I'm thinking, well, maybe I should listen to Joy. I'm not good at laundry. All right.
Well,
So,
I suck at laundry. So,
fair enough.
that's what for me it was mostly about, like, if you have a spouse that works and a spouse that stays home, and I don't care if it's mom or dad, there's somebody at home doing that stuff. So when the workday is over or the weekend comes, that stuff is done so you can go. Travis and I both work full time, and I do get to work from home, but I couldn't work the hours that I work and still have time for those things. So when Brian and I decided about we need to hire some assistant help, I said, let me keep my admin stuff and let me hire someone to help me with my life while I'm working. And that has been far more beneficial to our business than me hiring a secretary, for example.
Yeah, I mean that's really fascinating because I mean, and it's the idea of just valuing your time over anything, and I guess it doesn't. And we like to put everything in our tiny little boxes and our different silos. We build them up, and we want to pretend like when we go to work that we don't have four little kids that we have to keep in the back of our mind, or the laundry, or the lawn, or whatever it is. And I'm tired. I guess part of this is I'm tired of us coming to work and making these delineations. How important is it to kind of get on that mindset of like, listen, it doesn't matter where you save the time, as long as you save the time somewhere, you're going to free it up for
I don't
another.
make those delineations anymore. I just don't. And if you are on a coaching call with me as a client, or if you work in my office, or sometimes even an interview like this, there's a very good chance a 3 or a 5-year-old is going to come around the corner and crawl in my lap. And I used to stress about it. I used to be like, oh, it's so unprofessional and I'm going to look terrible. And I quit it because the truth is, like, most people dig it that I get to stay at home and be working and my kids are around the corner. They think that's really cool and they wish they could do it. The ones that don't, they're probably not going to want to work with me anyway because, I mean, that's why we do this kind of entrepreneurial type business, is for the lifestyle it brings. And it doesn't mean this lifestyle where you're, living in Europe and everything's automated and we don't have any cares in the world. For me, at least, it means that, I get to work to have a life, and that my work and life is intertwined. I'm doing something I love, whether it's dirty work or not. I'm doing something that I love, and, my kids are a part of it, my husband's a part of it, and we can commingle things. It's very easy for me to move my office to the beach for a week, and my husband has 6 weeks of paid vacation, so we do that 6 weeks a year. We're going somewhere. And that's this lifestyle, that's what this job affords us. So
I'm with you on that because I got two little ones that will just kind of barge in at any point in time. They really don't know the whole idea of like dad's office doors closed. I work from home as well, except for the dog. Anybody that has a dog that can't get the dog away, I don't know about you, but if they're barking during the interview, then it's just like, oh man, tell me if I'm being a pet, like.
no, but I have 2 dogs, and I remember our coaching program. It's called Communicator Coaching, and we started it in January. And our very first call, was on Zoom, and it's all live and video, and everyone has their little heads, so it looks like the Brady Bunch. There's about 16 of us on it. And right in the middle of the call, my dog somehow got downstairs and is like walking through the shot. I'm sitting in a chair, and this tail keeps wagging, and it happened. I could not get him to go away. I couldn't pause. Like, yeah, keep your dogs out of the shot, please.
At least he didn't bark. I think it's the barking. Like the sound bothers me more. I would deal with a wagging tail. I can deal with a wagging tail. But kind of getting close to wrapping it up. Coming back to kind of the people that you work with on a daily basis. You kind of touched upon the idea of saying, well, I don't think it should be called the dirty work, and I guess you touched upon this in your pre-show rant. So if anybody missed that, they should definitely go watch that. But you'd said that instead of calling it the dirty work, we should call it the behind-the-scenes work. And what do you think separates somebody that is able to do the behind-the-scenes work, but also wants to be that person that is able to step out onto the stage and be center stage? Because there is that something, and that something is hard to account for and hard to teach and learn.
Well, that's funny because I had an experience in the last couple of years with a person like that. Wonderful person, super knowledgeable, really smart. Everybody loved him. And the deal was, if you are doing behind the scenes work like I do as a business, now sometimes I get to be on the stage. Like today, I'm doing the interview, which doesn't happen very often. Sometimes I'm asked to speak. Sometimes I'm on the stage. But that is as a result of the dirty work that I've been doing, right? So if you are a person who's trying to do the dirty work, thinking that it's going to introduce you to people or things or opportunities so that you can be the person on the stage, I don't think that really works very well. Now, you need to learn skills, and you can transition from one to the other. And by the way, this person did transition, and he is on the stage, and it's working great for him. But in our business as managers, business managers for various clients, our job is not, we are behind the scenes because that's where we want to be. We like to be behind the scenes. I love to be the mastermind that puts the conference together, and we can say, hey, we made $100,000 on this conference, and it's because of the work that me and my team did behind the scenes that made that happen. That really gets me excited. So I don't think you can do the dirty work just to think it's going to get you in front of the right people to move you onto the stage. You can make that transition, but one doesn't just lead to the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It completely makes sense. And I think, like you said, that, people, being able to take it out on the stage is very rare. But I'll have to say this, though. You guys, in true to form, you don't like to come out from behind the scenes, because this was one of the hardest shows I had to book. Like, honestly, I had like 5 people I tried to get on here. Like, I tried to get first your friend, Rebecca Livermore, who's going to be on the show next week. She didn't want to talk about this topic. We're going to talk about that a little bit why, but you guys are hard to find. I mean, it's like hard to find who actually does this stuff, like, because people don't talk about these people all that often.
Well, and it's cool for business for us, because I got to be honest, like, we turn clients down a lot because people hear what we do and they say, I need someone to do that for me. And so you got to remember, the dirty work doesn't mean low-level kind of work. I do extremely high-level work. In book marketing, in conference development, in product development, in launches. But somebody needs someone to do this kind of work, and that's kind of the beauty in our business. It's really what's helped Brian and I grow the Frontline Group, is just that there's a great need for the services that we're providing.
What is it? I guess I have to know, what does the conversation look like, or what does a client look like that is turned down? Like, how does that go?
Oh, geez. Well, it used to be that we only could have a handful of clients because we did just full management, and so it had to be somebody of a particular income level who our work as a management is on commission. So you have to be making enough money to make it worth the time for us to help you. And it was really more about our schedule, like how much could we handle with just our little business. But in January, we developed communicator coaching, and so that is a different product where it's a set monthly fee, and it's for somebody who's just getting started, or somebody who doesn't really have a team but needs some help and some guidance and direction in their career. So that allowed us to take on, 16 to 20 more clients. So but money is one thing, but really management is such a close personal thing to do. So you gotta gel your personalities. Like, we need to have some of the same belief systems and really get each other. We're going to be way in your business, and you're going to be in our business, and everyone has to be very comfortable. So I would say, there's a variety of factors: money, timing, but personality is a big one too. So
I'd imagine it's a lot like being in a band. I don't know if you ever played in bands, but it seems like it would be similar to that relationship.
Yeah, probably. And like, we always make it a point, like, we really know our clients' spouses, and we know their kids, and they know our families, because it's a very relationship. So.
All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. Usually what I like to do, if we have somebody willing, is to bring them onto the show to ask you a question directly. I don't think we have anybody brave enough today, even though you are probably the nicest guest I've ever had on the show.
That must be scary.
I don't think that's it at all. I just think we're going to blame it on them. We're just blame the audience, because I'm going to play it to the host right now. So I love the audience, but don't get me wrong. But so I do have a question, though, that I want to ask you, close it out with, and we touched upon it a little bit, but this is from Tim Bain, who asks, how does someone get started doing what you're doing?
That's a good question. And in fact, we've had a couple people that have signed up for our coaching program because they don't want to be the speakers or the authors, but they want to be doing what we're doing. They want to do the dirty work. So a few people have signed up for communicator coaching for that purpose. How do you get started doing what we're doing? There's a couple ways. Number one, if you want to do some behind-the-scenes kind of dirty work, the easiest way to do that right now is to become a VA. There's a lot of people in our genre who need help, and VAs are not just doing appointments and travel. They're doing a lot of really high-level work when you get the right two people together. So that's one way. The other thing I would tell you is, find somebody, maybe it's an author, a speaker, a comedian, someone like that, that you admire or or you've met at a conference, network around somewhere that needs help. We had a client who, he's not a current management client, but we started working with Michael Hyatt when he was still working at Thomas Nelson, when he was still a CEO, and we just handled his speaking engagements, and it was a couple things a year. It was very small. We just booked some speaking things for him, and there wasn't a ton of money in it. We just really have a great friendship, and we love what he does and what he stands for. And over time, that small thing turned into full management of his business. So we were managing Michael up through last fall, and now he's just growing, and has an entire, full-time team of his own. But we've got another client who's an up-and-coming author who we just really believe in what she's doing, and there's not a lot of money to start, but I think that the relationship is so tight and so intact, and that it's a lot of time and investment, and I think big things are going to happen for her. So part of it's taking a risk. Go and find someone who needs your help, and I promise you there's tons of people who need this kind of help. There might not be a ton of money to start, but you never know who will be that person that could really be a marquee client.
So basically, it boils down to being able to casually stalk people and not get a restraining order.
That's what it is. Yeah. Be a casual stalker. That's too creepy. How about be an excellent networker? That would be better.
Sure. If we want to polish it up a little bit, I'll give it to you. But it sounds kind of, and this is fascinating to me. It sounds kind of like you look for people, like almost like a sports scout. Like you're scouting for people like who could actually have the potential to kind of grow, like a Michael Hyatt instance where he's at a job, but he could become somebody that would be a profitable client. Like you said, that you gave an example of another younger woman, I believe, that was in the same situation.
Yeah, I think you just need to really keep an open mind, and as we've developed our skills over the years, we used to just book speaking events, and we would advance your dates, and we'd make sure your product got there, and that we were great road managers, and over time we've become really good book marketers, and we've become good course developers, and we've learned Facebook. We're pretty tough with Infusionsoft, and we really are getting into the whole, drip campaigns and using lead pages and doing big product launches and things. So our skill set has changed over time, and that's changed the client as well. But when you work in this online space, you've got to be really willing to be flexible, because what you did 3 years ago might not exist, and there might be 3 new, better platforms that are out there that you've got to be on top of if you're going to keep moving forward.
And I'm going to do something a little new. This is the absolute last thing that we're going to do here. But I want you to give everybody at home one thing that they can do, whether it's this week, next week, over the course of a month, whatever it is, but one thing to kind of start identifying their dirty work and how to kind of make that transition, how to hit that kind of peak, if you will, is to start getting things off their plate, getting it onto other people's plates. What's one thing that they can start to understand this and actually take action on it?
Well, that's pretty easy for me just because of this experience I just had. You might not have a good question,
but it's okay, good.
Yeah, you might not have a Lauren who you can just who will do all of your dirty work and type everything down for you. But take a couple hours, take a morning, and go dump everything out of your head onto paper. Get big sticky white pages and put them all over your walls. And if you have 5 clients or you have 5 projects, make each paper one and just start writing all the stuff that you've got up here. Once you get all of it out onto paper, you can see what you're really dealing with, and then it's easier to delegate or to do it if it's quick, to delegate it, or just to outsource it to somebody else. Even if you still end up doing it yourself, it's the best way for you to get organized. Get it out of your head and onto paper. And I really should credit Brian with this, because God love him, Brian's married to my best friend since we were kids, so I've known him for 20 years, and he is constantly telling me, Joy, no one knows what you're doing. Joy, don't put it in a spiral notebook. Nobody can see it, And hopefully he won't watch this, but he was really right. Get it out of your head, get it onto paper, and then you can start to get it finished and mess with it. So
he actually asked me to send him a link when we were done, so I don't. But no, I don't know Brian at all. But no, I do appreciate that's I will do that tomorrow. Sounds like a good tip. Hopefully that helps a lot of people out. Joe, I do really appreciate you taking the time to kind of talk with us today. Where can people go get a little more of you, learn about what you do, all the dirty work that you do for all the really cool people that you do it for?
Sure, you can go to thefrontlinegroup.com and find out about our business as a whole. And if you're interested in coaching, which we do have about 5 or 6 slots available, you can go to communicatorcoaching.com.
All right, fantastic, Joy. Well, that's it. We're going to go ahead and get out of here for the week. I appreciate all of the dirty workingness that you lended to our fine people here. Really appreciate it. We're going to get out. I appreciate the time. Take it easy, everyone. We'll see you
Thanks.
next week.
Bye-bye.